Before we get to today's video, I do want to let you know that it's sponsored by Infinity Kingdom. Infinity Kingdom is an MMO strategy game where you build your own city as part of a kingdom, join alliances, take on other cities, and eventually, hopefully, conquer the world. Now, my own city of DeadwoodJedi is part of the DeadwoodJedi Alliance in the Vitas Kingdom, and you can go ahead and join that if you'd like. Now, if your alliance is strong enough, you can even take part in massive city sieges and potentially even take on the largest city in the map, the World Heart. Now, of course, in order to do all this stuff, you need to build up your city, upgrading your buildings wherever you can. And in addition to that, you're going to want to collect your resources, of course, and then build your armies. That's probably the most important one, right? Now, of course, your armies are going to be led by these immortal heroes that we summon from Philosopher's Stones. And each one of those champions leads your army in a different way. Now, of course, all these heroes, along with the dragons that you can get as well, those all belong to one of 7 different elements. And you can see here we got a fire elemental champion. He looks pretty cool, I have to say. And so they're all based off of like real world historical figures or mythological figures. We got Sanada Yukimura right there. He's actually pretty good to my understanding. And so you summon these champions and this is what you get. This is pretty cool. We got a lightning guy. Excellent. This guy looks cool. I'm very excited about that. We can also get dragons through dragon shards, and you can get actually 4 of them free through defeating some of the known boss enemies in this game. And they can be big like this one, or they can even start up, but they all start off small, I should say, like this guy, and you grow them. You don't just hatch them, then you have to grow them to get to their full capabilities. All the champions and the dragons themselves all belong to one of these 7 elements, and they all have different strengths or weaknesses therein. Even the troops that you use here have their own different strengths and weaknesses as well. Provides a little bit of strategy over who you want to get and how you do them and how you build your units. Infinity Knights is a lot simpler than many of the other MMO strategy games out there. It has a ton of free-to-play elements, including redemption codes and, as I said, free dragon crystals when you defeat some of those known bosses. So it's a pretty fun game, pretty easy to do. If you're interested, you're welcome to join me in my alliance, and maybe we'll take down the World Heart together. Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. I am actually on the test server here and for that Plarium gave me access to, and we're going to take a quick look at Versulf, the Grim, the new fusion champion. But there's a little something I need to tell you guys about first. This is the most important part about this video, frankly, is that there is a 2-time speed set drop rate event. There's a drop frenzy coming up. It's coming up. It should be actually active almost by the time this video comes out. It starts Tuesday. It lasts for 3 days, 72 hours. So lots of time to farm dragon and get yourself some speed sets. We had this not too long ago. I know a lot of people wailed out for it. I know I wailed out for it pretty hard. And I actually got some good pieces out of it. Now, at the level of my account, I didn't get that many. But look, if you are... Dragon is one of those dungeons you have to farm all the time. There's no limit to it. Because that's the only place you can get speed sets. And they are the most valuable set in this game. Like 100% most valuable set in this game. This is the time to use that energy for it. Look, if I can farm and get twice the chance of getting speed sets during this period... if it's 72 hours of me farming, that's equivalent to doing it for 6 days instead of 3 because I have twice the chance of landing those speed sets. There is nothing more valuable than those. So 100%, guys, I highly recommend if you have any energy saved, if you have any gems saved, now is going to be the time to use it. You should be farming dragon 24/7 for those 3 days. I guess 24/3 is really how that would work. But that's definitely going to be where you're going to want to spend your resources. Now, obviously, not everybody has the same kind of resources to commit to that. But what you do have, this is the time to spend it there. This is going to be the most efficient usage of your resources. And remember, if you are super end game like myself, if you only need like top tier gear, is that really what's going to change your account? Farming 25 is still probably your best bet if you don't care about the resources you spend, because you're going to be getting more legendary gear, more epic gear, more 6-star gear. Now, if resource management is important to you, but you're still end game, that's where you're going to want to look at stage 24. The drop rates are almost as good as 25. It's really not a huge level of difference, but the energy rate is way better, right? You're only spending 18 energy versus 20, and the drop rates are pretty close to the same. So as far as farming efficiency, 24 is the king. As far as just getting the best gear, 25 is where you're going to want to be at. But even if you can only farm level 20, or level 20 is super fast compared to 24 and 25, that's still a great place to farm because you're still getting only 5 and 6 star gear. The drop rates are still solid, and it's still a very efficient usage of your energy. So don't feel bad if you guys aren't at those end game levels. Those earlier ones are still really good. At the end of this too, I will have in one of the recommended videos, I'll have my dragon guide that I did a few weeks back. It should give you guys some ideas as far as how to go about it, the best way to farm those dungeons, and like how to figure out for your team what champions you have, the best way to, make your team so you can farm it efficiently. And it has a little bit more information about the drop rates in there as well. And then, of course, we have the fusion event. Now, obviously, I'm on the test server, so you can't see that. But we are going to be looking at Versulf the Grim. This is the champion that's being this fragment fusion event. Let me move myself over. There you go. This fragment fusion event is for Versulf the Grim. He's an interesting champion. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna spoil it for you guys. I don't think he's worth wailing out for. He's probably one of my least favorite fusion champions, and the reason why is his skills all are skills that we already have champions for. It's not super uncommon. He's got a 50% chance to place provoke on his A1. He gives himself a shield, that's great, but 50% chance single target. That's not game changing. Yeah, you can maybe lock down a champion, but without it being guaranteed, there's not a lot to really love about this. For a legendary champion, I'm not in love with that. His A2 is very nice. It's an AoE hit, and it places leech. And it'll do a double hit if the enemies have like a stun, freeze, fear, true fear, or provoke. So this can actually make him very good in something like Arena. If you have an AoE champion that will provoke or fear the enemy or stun them, right? You can pair him with like an Astralon, for example, or even like an Angar, or, for that matter, you could pair him with a whole bunch of champions. Elder Skarg, even I'm trying to think of the epic champion that places, there she is, Umbral Enchantress, right? You can pair him with a variety of champions, and that can actually be really effective, right? Torment, freeze, all those things that you could do so that he gets a nice, strong double hit. I would not be surprised if we see some of him in Arena. That said, I'm not sure that I'm like in love with this guy. That this hit is really strong, and I'm going to show you guys that in Dragon. Not going to show him in Arena, though. I think there's definitely some applications for that, but I will show him in Dungeons, in Dragon, in Ice Golem, so you can kind of get an idea of what he can do. Now, his Leech is always nice, too, for dungeon work, PvE work. I think he's actually going to be really nice with that, because that always will help you heal up. Means you don't have the same necessary requirements of bringing a healer into your team. He also has this ally protection and increased defense buff on the A3. It's always good to keep everybody alive. 3-turn cooldowns for everything. That's nice. And then this passive ability is what I think is supposed to make him unique, though I'm a little less intrigued by it. Basically places a provoke on the attacker for 1 turn, and that 20% chance of placing that is per hit. Now, I think he was designed to be used for something like Magma Dragon, where his A1 is going to try and provoke. Every time he gets hit, he's going to try and provoke. And Magma Dragon, obviously, is the one dungeon boss that can be provoked. But it's not that consistent to me. 50% chance, 20% chance, none of those scream to me, hey, consistently, we're going to lock this guy down. And that's what you want from a control champion. You want consistency, especially for PvE content. For PvP, a little randomness isn't as bad, but for PvE, you want it consistent. You want to be able to farm that stuff, and that means having it go the same way every single time. That's not what this champion does. What I do think he's going to be good for, though, is as a supplementary champion. If you have, like, a Cantra, right? That's who I run on my Magma Dragon to provoke the Magma Dragon. I think Versulf is going to be a good pairing. 1, ally protection, going to help protect that other champion that's provoking. 2, has his own chance of placing that provoke, which means if Cantra doesn't land it, at least he'll have a good chance of doing that. And between the two of them, should be very consistent. Not to mention his hit is pretty hard. He still places that leech debuff out there. So there is some stuff to like about him. I just don't see this guy being game-changing. And that's kind of the overall thing, is if he's not game-changing, I'm not wailing out to fuse him. Not since we have fusions literally every other week right now, it seems like. So if they weren't as common like they used to be, I would say 100% go for it. What else are you going to use your resources on? But because we have these new champions coming so consistently, there's not as much of a call, and I think you can more pick and choose who you're trying to get. In this case, this is not one I would pick to go and get. It's not to say I won't. I'm definitely going to get them, but just to kind of give you guys that head up, that's not where I don't think it's as necessary as it used to be, I guess what I'd say. Now, let me quickly show you how I have them kitted out. I basically gave them my Miscreated Monsters gear. You can see crit rate sets, Immortal gear. Got 67,000 HP, 2,600 defense, 216 speed, 244 accuracy, 100% crit rate, 233 crit damage. He's going to hit hard. He's going to, sustain. Obviously, you can build him with more HP. He's got a really good base HP, pretty solid base defense as well. So you can get him up to 90,000, 100,000 HP if you wanted to really wail out. I don't know you can do that with this crit rate and crit damage, though. And certainly not with this kind of defensive level. Right now, he's kind of a mix of sustain and damage, and I think you're going to get a good idea of what he can do in this game. And then I think that's what we want him. Mastery-wise, I kind of went down. Let me see if I can move myself over. There we go. I went down and got War Master. This is probably, obviously if you're going to do a more arena build, you'd want to come down to Helm Smasher, or you'd want to come down to Flawless Executioner. But for me, I was just kind of using them for, dungeon work. This is always good against the bosses because their HP level is so high, it does a lot of damage. Generally will out-damage Helm Smasher or Executioner, unless you're doing max HP hits. And so that's kind of where I went with it. I think there's an argument to be made for doing the others as well. He does have good damage with that A2 skill and will affect the waves very significantly. So getting more crit rate or, ignoring some of their defense is always an advisable thing to do. But yeah, let's go ahead. I'm going to show you him in Dragon. I'm going to show you him in Ice Golem, give you an idea of a couple ways you can use him, or a couple places you can use him, and how he kind of fits in with the squad. And you can kind of make the decision yourself whether you want to fuse him or not. Okay, let's take a quick look at Versulf here in Dragon. We can take an idea of like how hard he hits and what he kind of brings to the table. So we'll go ahead and jump in here. You also only have 4 champions in there. It's not really necessary to have everybody. Siffy, go ahead and put that up there. We'll get the decreased defense and weaken out so we can see our skills here. Right? Now Versulf goes. You see all his skills are available here. I'm going to put it on one time so we can see he's going to end up using this A2, the one that puts up the leech debuff. We don't have Fear out, so it's not going to have an extra hit on anybody, but we'll try and show that a little bit later on. But you can see here, I'll even highlight that so you can see. We're going to put it on auto. He does that Rain of Sorrow. It looks really cool, I have to say, and it does pretty solid damage there. I think it's pretty obvious. It hits pretty decently hard. So there's some positivity to him as a damage dealer. Now you can see he gets that ally protection out there. Great, no problem. We'll just kind of let this run. You guys can see a little bit of the damage that goes out here. And here he should be coming up here in just a second. There he goes. His A1, 54,000. Pretty solid hit. He's not doing ton of damage, obviously, but for an HP-based champion, it's not too shabby damage-wise. And then you can see there again, the Rain of Sorrow comes in, 50,000 a hit. It's very, very solid damage for sure. We're just going to A1 for a little bit. You can see the Provoke goes out on that A1, which is definitely a nice thing. It's also, it's single target, so the effectiveness is a little bit on the limited side. So we're going to try and get a couple more leeches out here. What I'd like to show you is that second hit he gets from using that, which is part of the reason why we're just going here. Another A1 Provoke, always nice. And you can see the effectiveness. He's able to control already 2 of their champions, which is pretty significant, I would say. If I'm not mistaken, he should use the ally protection here. Nope. He does like to prioritize that A2, the damage dealing hit, but you can see, very effective. Does a lot of damage, especially with decreased defense and weaken out there. And it's an AoE, so he can definitely hit pretty hard. I can definitely see him being useful in places like Arena, where that does come into play, but honestly, that's probably not going to be his strongest suit, right? He's an ally protection champion with some decent hitting, and getting an AoE leech out is not a bad thing at all, especially when you're talking about PvE content, right? So we're talking about Doom Tower, we're talking about dungeons, where it can be pretty hard to heal up. When you can get a leech out on the enemy, that means you don't necessarily have to bring a healer in. So it can be really useful. Things like Ice Golems, that could be very, very helpful. And of course, having that ally protection can always be a little bit dangerous as well. So he's an interesting champion. I'll be honest, he's not my favorite. I mean, some damage dealing out of the HP champion's great. Ally protection's always useful, but I'll be honest, I think a champion like Miscreated Monster has more utility than him. Provoke is really strong and really great, but I would rather have a Sir Nick. I'd rather have a Miscreated Monster in there. Honestly, I would rather have the the champion that we get from the daily logins. What's her name? Visix. I would rather have Visix, I think, than him because she brings more utility. You can see the damage he deals very significant. There's nothing wrong with that. He dealt more damage pretty much than anybody except Battle, who's doing poisons, right? So he can hit hard and he can be really useful for you. And it's always nice when you have a champion keeping everybody else alive to be able to do some raw damage to help get through those waves, for example. That's always really, really nice. But I don't know that I would say that he is an end game kind of, killer champion here. So for something like this, Ice Golems, right? We're going to try and see how this can work. And I haven't run this team, but hopefully this will give us an example of ways we could use him. Help us push through the waves with his AoE attack, help us heal up with his leech debuff, and help us stay alive with his not only his increased defense, but his ally protection there. That's the idea. You do see, there you go, that's that attack. It's pretty significant, takes him down a bit. He's not like a, this is stage 25, so, he's not going to clear the waves for you guys, but you can see he will help keep our squishier champions alive just a little bit longer and do just a little bit more damage. At least that's the hope here. So you can see he actually pairs really well. We actually got a provoke from Iron Brago on this. And with him, with that ally protection, that's going to actually help Iron Brago stay alive. So combining him with other provoke champions could be a really nice mixture, right? He provides ally protection for those other champions, and at the same time, they're able to draw the provoke and the aggro half the time. And then when he does get hit or he uses A1, he's able to provide a secondary aggro kind of effect in there for your team. So I could see him pairing really well with another ally protection champion, or another provoke champion, I should say, as well as an ally protection champion would be great for. So maybe like if you have an Angar or somebody of that kin, he might be actually really good. So to help kind of supplement that. Could pair really well with someone like a Cantra, for example, who's going to put a provoke, but maybe not 100% of the time. The two of them together can probably keep the enemy locked down, and he's going to help make sure that your other ally protection, your other provoke champion stays alive with his ally protect. Not to mention putting that leech out there allows everybody to heal up a lot more, so that helps definitely a lot with provoke champions. But on his own, being a provoke champion on his own, I don't see him being strong enough to do that job all alone. So that's kind of where you got to be a little bit careful of. Now, this is level 25 Ice Golems, but you can see fairly effective here. Definitely getting some healing out. We got through the waves actually fairly quickly because of his AoE attack. Definitely helped a lot. This is definitely faster than I usually run this stage. It's not a quick one for me. But we're getting those poisons out and doing pretty effective, I would say. And he's helped making sure that everybody stays alive with that ally protection. Now, of course, the danger is these AoE attacks and how much damage they do. Now, I've built him decently well, right? I have him in Miscreated Monster gear on him. Not a lot of defense, definitely a lot of HP. And Iron Brago's there to help bump his defense a little bit. So there's definitely some mixture as far as like the success possibilities here and how you would want to build him, right? Perhaps if you know he's going to be doing more protection, you give him a little bit more defense to make sure that he's going to be okay. That definitely more than I've given him. Maybe you build him with less damage capability, less crit damage, and you're building him with more HP and trying to keep his damage up that way, but also like let him stay alive a little bit longer. This is definitely more of an offensive build. So, but you can see we're getting through it pretty quick, and everybody so far has stayed alive, and that's really the big thing, right? That's really what he's designed there to do, to keep your team alive and provoke the enemy. But you can see he's useful in spots. He's not a trash champion. Okay, we are going to try this. Now, I brought in Elder Scar to play Saphir. That should give Versulf a second attack on this. So that's what we're aiming for here. Versulf, I did redo his masteries. Let me show you really quickly here, if I can find him. I redid his masteries just to kind of put him in more of an arena build here. Myself over, so we are going to get this some more damage with the fear. That's kind of really it. And then we did take Flawless Executioner. So hopefully this works. It's not perfect mastery-wise, but it's going to work, I think, for what we're trying to do. Assuming I'm fast enough, which is a major question. So we'll see how this works here, but we're going to just try and give this a shot here and see what can happen. If I'm faster, then we'll get a good idea. I'm not, so that's a problem. But we cut in, of course, because I am amazing. All right, so here we go. Now, with him, we're going to try and do this and get the Fear out there. We'll see who we get it on. So we got Provoke on a couple. We got Fear on one. And then we can see the double hit. Now, who we want to pay attention to here, Arbiter we should get a double hit on. Actually, Arbiter and Lysandra should get a double hit on because they both have Provoke. And we'll see how that goes. So here it comes. Boom, 18K on Arbiter. We did take out Lysandra. You can see that double hit. It's fairly effective. Now, obviously, if I built him out a little bit better, right? We don't have decreased defense and weaken out there, but there are some possibilities as far as to make this, I think, what you would say, more effective attack here. But the great part is we come back, we can put ally protection on, keep the rest of our allies alive, which is always nice, and just kind of go from there. And, you know, hopefully we can survive. We'll see how this actually works. I don't know. But yeah, you can see there's some strength there to his hits. He does hit very hard, which is nice. But I don't see him as an arena nuker. As you can tell, it's a little bit damage-wise. But if you can consistently proc that double hit, that's really, really effective. And I mean, I'm going to get him for sure. These Fragment Fusion events aren't the most difficult. If you are competing, if you're participating in all the events, it's not going to be an issue. But if you're really strapped for resources, if you're not sure, you know, do you want to whale out for this? I'd say no. This is not something that you want to burst your resources for. He's okay. This passive ability is really unique, and this is the kind of thing that makes these legendaries super cool, are those unique passive abilities, the things that they do that nobody else can do. Now there's always a chance it's going to get changed, he's going to get fixed, he's going to be made better, and this is why you get the legendaries if you can. It's always hard to get legendaries anyway, but he's not going to change your account, guys. So if you're wondering, do I get him or do I not? You know, if you're struggling for resources, you're not sure whether to commit yours to him, I would actually lean against it. It's not to say, you know, as always, if you can get the legendary, get the legendary. But of the new champions, he's probably one of the least impressive. And I think he's probably one of the least useful because he does what a lot of other champions do. He just doesn't do it nearly as well. So, definitely not a bad champion, but definitely also not somebody that I would wail out to get. So that's kind of my my vote on that one. Remember, we have those, as I'm on the test account here again, just remember, we got those 2-time speed sets coming up this week. It should be up, active probably by the time you see this video. And that is what you're going to want to wail out for. That's what you're going to want to use your resources for, because we are always farming, but speed sets are super hard to get and super valuable. The most valuable set in this game. So if you're going to use your resources on one thing, I would use it on those dragon runs coming up. I wouldn't waste your time on the fusion. Obviously, if it's something you can get, go for it, but I do not see him being a game-changing champion. And those are the ones that you definitely don't want to skip, right? We're talking about Kreela, we're talking about Brogni, we're talking about Brago. Those are champions that are like, ooh, gotta get them. This is not quite one of those. Great champion, definitely worth, I don't think there's any problem getting him, but I also don't think he's going to change your account. And in fact, a lot of you, he'll probably end up being in the vault and staying there because I don't see his usefulness outstripping the usefulness of a lot of other champions that we already have. So keep that in mind as you're going through this. And don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed that little intro from Infinity Kingdoms, go ahead and join my alliance, DeadwoodJedi, in the Vitas Kingdom. And I'll look forward to seeing you there. And yeah, that's all we got. That's all we got today. I got a lot of videos coming up. I'm really excited. I'm going to do some spotlights on these champions coming up this week. Also got a one-on-one I did with Wantames, so I'm really excited about that. I had a lot of fun talking with him. And that should be really good. And yeah, till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.